Hello. I had hoped to give this presentation in class, but I did not attend the class that we were doing the presentations due to my health not being 100% back after the elections and my emotional and social battery being drained after attending the amazing conference that I attended last Friday and Saturday for the Rocky Mountain Humanistic Counseling and Psychological Association, their 8th annual conference. I was a volunteer at that conference. How that came about was Jason Diaz had presented that as one of the options for volunteer work that we could do for this class. I did look at other options as far as things to volunteer for. The background check that was required of the other volunteer things I am interested in would have taken too long in order to get it completed for this class. So that's just volunteer work that I'll look at in the future. So I did reach out to the Rocky Mountain Humanistic, I always stumble on saying this group name, the Rocky Mountain Humanistic Counseling and Psychological Association to volunteer at their conference. After some back and forth with the directors of the conference, and securing the days off from work, since I only work on Fridays and Saturdays, I was able to attend and volunteer there. I made contact with them through email that Jason had provided to us. When I got to the conference, it first was the pre-conference, which was Friday morning, and I helped setting things up for people that were going to be attending the conference, getting their lanyards set up and making sure that me and the other volunteers knew how to check them in appropriately for the different reasons that they were there. Some were there just to attend the conference, and some were there for continuing education. So they had different requirements that needed to be set up. I volunteered to run the bookstore that they had going on throughout the conference, just because I have a lot of retail experience and I used the device that they were using to cash people out for that. I connected with my other fellow volunteers. I believe there was 6 of us in all. And we kind of decided who was going to do what work that they needed from us based on what strengths we each had. While also volunteering, we all got to attend the conference, which was a huge added benefit, more so than I even had anticipated. As far as what I learned through this volunteer experience and project, I will go through some of the speakers and presenters that they had at the conference and a couple of the things that I learned from each one of them. But what I truly learned from attending this conference was a little bit of restored faith in humanity after the past emotional week that the United States has had. And also that communities exist and can make a great impact on someone personally, locally, and globally. Excuse me. So the pre-conference, there were a few speakers that were there virtually. I was seated outside of the conference room, so there was a lot of it that I didn't get to hear. There were some really good speakers in that first part of the pre-conference. The one that I'm going to talk about from that was the Empowering Children and Their Families Moving Through Clinical Paralysis and Cultural Trauma Dialogue by Dr. Theopia Jackson, who I had the pleasure of meeting at this conference and having some wonderful conversation with. During this presentation, I was looking at it through the eyes of an early childhood educator. And she spoke about how families and people in the education field and people in the clinical psychology field can partner together and really help the children that we have in our care by offering different ways for children to navigate all of the things that life throws at them, unfortunately, at a young age for a lot of children. So yeah, that was a good takeaway that I had from that first talk. Moving into the second day of the conference, that was where we really got into a lot of the meat and potatoes of the conference. Let me open up my notes. I did take some notes at the conference. I found that as the conference was going on, I needed to just be present in the moment, so I kind of stopped taking notes and just kind of sat with the presenters and the people around me to kind of absorb what was going on. Another one of the presenters that really struck out to me and I felt did an amazing job and spoke to me personally was Dr. Nathaniel Granger's presentation on I'm sorry, I'm missing where his was. Cultural perspectives on cognitive processing therapy and humanistic therapy for trauma. He spoke a lot about our stuck points that each one of us has in moving forward from some of the trauma that we've experienced, and kind of how to navigate around or look at our stuck points in different lights. So that's just a very brief synopsis of what he spoke about. He spoke about how our stuck points play out in our lives and how we can really just wrap our lives around these stuck points and these psychological barriers that we have that often manifest as shame, guilt, fear, self-blame, distorted beliefs and about the self and about the world around you. So things that we just do out of habit or versus is that a fact in your life that's actually true. So I had the pleasure of having some amazing conversation with Dr. Granger, and I'm really thrilled that I got to meet him. Another presentation that was of great value to me was given by Megan Campbell and Justin Rock, and that was about navigating suicide with presence. So being there for a person who is expressing some ideologies of suicide. This presentation spoke to me because unfortunately I have been affected more than once by suicide. So I know probably way too many people who have died by suicide. that were either extremely close to me, being my first husband. We were not married at the time, but he is the father of my child. And I did have to help my 20-year-old son navigate life after losing a parent to suicide. And I'm still doing that 8 years later. I've had a couple of close friends that I've lost to suicide, and I have had a former student that I lost to suicide. And by former student, I mean I had this child when they were in pre-K, so at about the age of 5. And we lost him to suicide 10 years later. So he was just a child, 15. The presentation that Megan and Justin gave, I think would definitely help professionals that have not had to deal with someone who was expressing the desire not to be alive anymore. They gave some very, very powerful and impactful statements from clients that were expressing the desire not to be alive anymore, and how sometimes just being present for those people and not trying to fix them might be more of a powerful tool than what a lot of people believe. And sometimes you can just get stuck in the fear of trying to fix that person versus just being there for them. So that was very powerful and impactful to me as well. The greatest experience that I had from this conference, and I'm very thankful that this space was given to anyone who wanted to be part of it, was the processing election debrief. That was a space that quite a few of us gave each other to express how we were feeling just days after this election. It was filled with a lot of emotion. It was comforting to have so many people from a diverse background and different age groups, different cultural backgrounds, expressing their fears, mostly, about the direction our country is going in, expressing their personal fears of what they're afraid could happen to them or people they love personally. And the group trying to give maybe encouragement, I don't know if that's the right word, but giving love to each other in such a scary time. So that space was what I learned the most from. I learned that needing some form of community after such a traumatic global event is important. And even though we need to take care of our personal and mental health individually, sometimes coming together with people who have the same perspective of you, but also people who have a different perspective of you. And helping to realize that even people that voted in a way that a lot of us feel is harming to us, realizing that a lot of these people truly were not paying as close attention to this election as some of us were paying, and they don't realize the ramifications that have come from it. So even though none of us really came from that experience feeling like we had the answers or feeling like we knew what to do going forward, we at least knew that there was community locally that we all could reach out to when we were experiencing doubt or fear or whatever emotions come up in the next coming months and years. That is sure to be quite uncertain to most of us. How these experiences relate to psychological principles from our readings. I don't have my textbook in front of me. I probably should. And didn't really prepare for this question. I think that just thinking about the human experience in general, and when it comes to diagnoses and protecting one's mental health, especially if there's someone that has been deemed to have mental health issues, I think that this experience relates to that in just knowing that and learning that someone's diagnosis does not define them, and that experiences affect each one of us and each one of us a little bit differently, but looking at a human being not for what they've been diagnosed with or for what mental health challenges they have, looking at how they are just human and how people that are in the field of psychology, or if you're like me, just learning about it, how being able to see each person that I encounter as a complex person and not just a label, whether that's a diagnosis label, a political label, a race label, a gender label, getting to actually know people that you're connecting with and people around you versus just looking at a label is more important than I knew before I started going into this field. I come with a background of, like I said, early childhood education, and I also have a very strong background in retail management, where I managed hundreds of people in a very big box retail company. Throughout my 10 years there, I was the front end manager, so I had to deal with all of the customer complaints that came through the store, and also managing many people at a time, managing adults. So whether it comes to education, managing people, or just being there for people, I think that I learned to look beyond the labels that I've put on someone or the labels that society has put on someone. I hope that this presentation does enough justice to the experience that I had at the volunteer event that I took part in. It was, and not just saying this lightly, a life-changing experience for me, and I believe for a lot of other people that attended this conference. So thank you for listening.